Marketer of the Day number 420, Online Advertising, Master Search Engine Optimization and Content Marketing on Pinterest and YouTube with Kellen Kautzman. Hey everyone, and thanks for listening. We're talking right now with Kellen Kautzman, and Kellen owns Send It Rising Internet Marketing. You can check it out at senditrising.com. And Send It Rising Marketing manages a team of over 20 internet marketing professionals. Now, Kellen was the keynote speaker at Planet Hollywood on the Las Vegas Strip. He's spoken at Roseman University, and he's been on the Lance Tomasciro podcast. That's my business partner, so nice going. And his new book, Everybody's Doing It, was the #1 new release on Amazon.com in the SEO, the search engine optimization category. So if you're here to figure out how to get your business doing better, how to get it rocking and rolling, to get those better search results, get better SEO, then you're in the right place. So Kellen, how are things?
Life is good, Robert. How you doing?
Super fantastic, better than ever. I appreciate you asking me as well. So, I mean, what's going on these days with SEO?
Well, Pinterest is a neglected piece of the puzzle. Through Google Search Console, also called Google Webmaster Tools, we can measure links, and Pinterest goes viral pretty quickly. So if you're a small business owner and I bring up the words Pinterest to you, typically the first result is, what are you talking about Pinterest? That's not going to do anything for me, even if they're like a florist or something that you would think might jive. The point of Pinterest in 2017 is that if you can think of an interesting or creative pin, and this works for any kind of industry, think of an electrician. If there is an infographic that shows you which wires are dangerous and which are less dangerous, or the color coding of wires is a good example. We had a dog rescue that created a pin. It's a picture of a corgi. Robert, do you know what a corgi looks like?
Little tiny dog, right?
You got it. It's like a burrito with legs.
Okay.
And so there's this corgi with one paw up on a stair, and it says, "Life is short, so are my legs." And that was repinned 14,100 times. And what that does is, because the image itself is a link back to the website, you can get exponential link building. So we had a client, Parsons Rocks, here in Vegas, which is a decorative rock landscaping company with what I would consider to be one of the most mundane pictures of a backyard. But for some reason, it took off on Pinterest, ended up with 3,000 repins, which means 3,000 links. And those links, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll please, obviously raise Google rankings, and you get paid. So do not neglect Pinterest as a link building mechanism.
And that's super great. And it's funny because people always think about, backlinks and stuff like that. And, even a handful of backlinks is good. But then if you share something on Facebook or Pinterest or some social area, you think, oh, just a couple of likes and shares. It's just like a fart in the wind, basically. But I hadn't really considered that. Oh, yeah, if something is put on Pinterest, it's pinned, it's shared all these different times. Those are all backlinks back to my site.
Yeah, that's right. And in Google Search Console, I've never seen a link from Facebook, not one. And I think I've seen one link from Twitter. So Google says that they don't index these sites, and I believe them.
Okay, great. And so is Pinterest like destined to be the next Facebook or the next Twitter? Is it ever going to get to a point where Pinterest is so crowded that Google will stop indexing those?
That's a great question, and I don't have the answer to that in particular. In fact, I'm not even sure why they index Pinterest and not Facebook and Twitter. I mean, with Facebook, I know that they're a direct competitor, so that makes sense. But and spam is pretty prevalent on Twitter, so I would say that it's possible, although I don't know for sure.
And even if they're gonna do it eventually, all the more reason to do it now. And get your stuff figured out while things are the way they are now. And so just to kind of get everyone caught up on Pinterest, because I have to admit that I probably didn't even know what Pinterest was until maybe like a year or two ago. And it was because of the different women in my life, because of it's a place where I see a lot of people do they share arts and crafts or decorating ideas or food ideas, a lot of the things that some of us guys stereotypically don't really care much about, don't really understand. But then once I started using it a little bit, I was like, oh, this is a great way to build an idea bank of whatever I have going on. And so I'm glad that there's Pinterest there, and I'm glad that you brought up this kind of boring client there, because the problem that I've had, and I think, and you let me know about this, but I think a lot of marketers have had this problem of how to make this business that maybe no one really cares about, how to make a website or a plugin or something, how to make it interesting enough for social. And it seems like it's like one or the other, right? Either I post something that's super niche down that no one really cares about, or I post like a funny picture or something that people do care about, but doesn't relate to my business. So do you have any thoughts on that whole kind of problem of how do I make it where people will pin it, they'll watch it, it's interesting, but also make it relate back to my business?
Yeah, I mean, from the viral image side, I take the perspective that education is key. If all else fails, just give them the information. You know, if you're a plumber, tell them how to fix the, what do you call it, the disposal, stuff like that. Unclog a drain. That's those sort of tips. But along that line of thinking, let me extend the conversation just to one more social media platform, being YouTube. I don't know if you're listening to this and you've uploaded a YouTube video and gone to the captions section. But if you do, what you'll find in the upper right hand corner when you click on that is that YouTube has I would call it 98 to 99% understanding of the words you're saying. The algorithm they're using is exceptionally good. And what this tells us is that content in the form of a blog is almost identical to content in the form of a video, meaning they're both translated into the written word. So if you're a small business owner and you can get out in front of, say, your van, if you're a plumber, if you're an insurance agent, just set up a little camera and start talking. It's going to be ugly at first, and that's okay. If you're anything like me, my first videos are embarrassingly bad, but that's part of the journey. Now we've got, like the $2,500 camera equipment, tripod, wireless lapel mic, lighting, the whole 9 yards, but you don't start there and you don't have to. In fact, some of the videos that do the best are those that are a little grainy, a little weird. As long as the content's good, keep in mind that, again, the Google Artificial Intelligence, which is married to YouTube, same company, understands the words that come out of your mouth. So when you think about content development, don't just think, I need my fingers to go numb from blogging so much, or I need to hire a company to blog on my behalf. That's good. That's fine. It's not going anywhere. But a lot of small businesses are reluctant to overcome this kind of junior high fear that we all tend to have, wherein we perspire if the camera is pointed in our general direction. I will have clients that think that they can knock out these videos, and the second that camera starts rolling, they melt down. They don't realize just how hard it is to be on camera. So if you are making YouTube videos, let me recommend you check out AdWords YouTube ads. They're called in-stream ads. We're getting cost per view at approximately 3 cents, which is insane. And about 1 out of 8 of those people actually watch to 30 seconds, which is when you're charged those 3 cents. So if you want a ton of impressions, you can target by city. So we're doing Las Vegas. We're getting approximately, I want to say 15,000 impressions, 3,000 views for $100. It's hard to beat that.
That's amazing. So lots of great stuff in there. So Pinterest is great, and then people should also be on YouTube, and people should just use whatever equipment they have, stand in front of the company truck or whatever, the van, whatever you have, and film it with what you have, and don't worry about the low production values. And it sounds like, so as far as so content to make, it sounds like it's all about like education and solving people's problems. And what that makes me think of is anytime I had, especially like either if I was trying to fix something, like if I was trying to, fix a dishwasher, fix a lawnmower, I've usually found myself going to YouTube. If I'm doing anything around the house, like a couple of years ago, I had a sewer line break and I had to figure out how to go and close the valve, or at least know what it looked like, so that way I wouldn't seem like such an idiot when the contractor came over. And so are these the kind of things that local businesses should be creating? Just like maybe like thinking of like the top 10 things that people are searching for, or something like that?
Yeah, that's a great start. And so if you find yourself as a small business owner, you now own a channel. And typically the channel that people own nowadays, they're terrible. They are really, really bad. And being honest with yourself to reflect on the poor quality. And by poor quality, I mean, let's say, for example, you have a YouTube channel and the last video was 3 years ago. that could have been a great video, but it doesn't count if there's no consistency there. And so, really raise the bar on the educational slash entertainment value of what you're putting out there. And so if you are even, for something as mundane as a light bulb manufacturer, which just, popped into my head for some reason, there are actually some really interesting things that you could talk about. You could talk about energy production in the United States and how it relates to light bulbs. You could talk about how light bulbs are evolving and how smart homes are coming up with all these different technologies and what those look like. You could talk about the stock price of the light bulb industry and how it's been great over the decades and how it's actually a good investment. You could even extend it, all the way into art and all these crazy different light bulbs that people create and all that sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, just as, Robert and I are here talking, every word we say is understood and measured by RankBrain, which is Google's artificial intelligence algorithm. And a quick note on that. I used to think that AI was basically a programmer tweaking the code of a system that was basically going to do X, Y, or Z based on what the programmer said. What I learned recently in the last couple of weeks is actually what's happening with AI is that the programmers are giving the artificial intelligence a goal and then walking away. As an example, there's this great Atari game, Robert, I don't know if you're familiar with this one, but you've got this little paddle at the bottom of the screen and you hit a ball and you're just trying to break the bricks. Once you break all the bricks at the top of the screen, you win.
Oh yeah, Breakout.
Yeah, Breakout. Thank you. And so they had Google's DeepMind learn this game, and they said get the maximum number of points. And what's fascinating to me about the artificial intelligence is that it actually takes 60 minutes before it, starts to learn a couple things. Then another 60 minutes go by and it learns some more things. And then, 2-3 days into it, it's basically mastered the game. One more piece on this puzzle is that English can be seen as a very complicated form of the game Breakout. So Google's understanding of the English language is actually incredibly good now. So you can basically be operating under the assumption that there's a judge out there. So imagine you're in a courtroom. This will not be difficult for some of you. And this judge is basically looking at all of the mentions in your channels of everything you say and rendering a verdict. And the verdict determines where you rank in Google search results.
Great. So in other words, Google is now so advanced now with their artificial intelligence and their ranking that it doesn't pay anymore to try to do games or trick the system. It's just if you do what's educational and entertaining and gives people what they want, then Google's huge brain will just figure it all out.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically having a conversation with someone that's smarter than you, and by like factors of thousands. And so it's really important to understand that you have this intrinsic ability to advertise. That's number one. The word advertising comes from the word advertere. It's Latin, and it means to turn toward. So anything you do as a business owner that gets somebody's attention, if you're on a podcast, for example, this is a great way of doing it. If you're running a Facebook ad, if you're even liking a post on Facebook, these are all examples of advertising. And you have to, and this is a little bit of, what would you call it, a therapy session. If you don't value your own expertise, you're kind of missing the point. And if you don't think that your industry is sexy, that it's interesting, you're missing the point. What you do on a daily basis for 99% of humanity is absolutely outside of their norm. And it is a lot more interesting than you think, and you're probably a lot smarter and better at it than you think. And so the new game that we're going to play now can actually be seen through the lens of like a 16-year-old. If you look at teenagers, they are putting everything online. And so if you want to measure your ability to advertise, measure it against that of a 16-year-old, because people in your generation, whether, you're an old millennial or, whatever, baby boomer, you're only fighting against those in your same generation. So if you're feeling anxious about making YouTube videos, if you're feeling weird about tweeting as often as you think you should, or embracing Snapchat or Pinterest or any of these, know that everyone else in your generation feels the same way, and it's to your advantage to push forward.
That's very reassuring. And then So along the lines of, putting stuff out there, and by the way, I like the idea of making the YouTube videos and then running in-stream ads on other people's YouTube videos, especially if you're like, say, that plumber, and then if you run an ad for anyone searching for specific plumbing problems and you have it within a certain radius, that sounds super cool. But what's the thought process behind what kind of content to create? Like you say, okay, well, if I have light bulbs, then I can talk about things like the energy market. And I'm kind of slapping myself on the forehead here, because a couple of years ago, you said that you were on Mr. Lance Tomashiro's show a couple of years ago. Me and him played around with Amazon, and we had these like camping fire starter sticks created, where you just like kind of rub these sticks together and it makes these sparks, starts a campfire. And I'm just feeling like a total idiot, because I wish that I had made at least a few videos with like camping tips, or even like reviews of the fire starter, anything like that, any kind of content to find other people who were already camper types of people who were maybe looking for camping tips, and then would end up finding our YouTube channel. So having said all that, like, fire starter sticks or light bulbs, what's your thought process from saying, here's where I want them to end up, here's what my company's all about, what kind of content do I create for that?
Yeah, so talking about your campfire sticks, it's a fascinating product, and so that'd be an easy one. There's a million different things you could do for that. And one thing to mention before I talk about the creative process is that something like campfire sticks, if you had created a YouTube video 3 years ago, you'd be sitting on an asset at this point. And it's just like real estate. There are moments where it dips, but generally over the years we see a steady increase in the asset's value. And so with the campfire sticks, a lot of folks are starting to make the correlation. They understand that a website has a certain intrinsic value and it grows over time. But the same is true of any web asset, like a YouTube video. So you could be sitting on a video right now with 20,000 views, about, I don't know, setting up camping equipment in the Arctic could be a cool video, or whatever. And so if you're listening to this, understand that the feeling of having missed the opportunity will always be here. And the opportunity, ironically, is always now. Now is always the best time to start. Now has all the best opportunities. So you're not missing out. You're missing out if you're not thinking about what you can do now. So with that in mind, allow me to introduce you to a part of the mind that you may be unfamiliar with, called the basal ganglia. And that's not something you put on pasta. It's a walnut-shaped piece of your brain towards the center, and that old reptilian brain that basically starts firing when you are on cruise control. And so once you've habituated something, the basal ganglia will kind of take over. There's a gentleman whose hippocampus was destroyed by a virus, and so his short-term memory was absolutely shot. He'd introduce himself to you over and over again. They put a board in front of him where he got to choose either X or Y, and he didn't know why he was choosing these things. And one of them had a red splotch on it, and the other one had a green splotch. And the green meant good, the red meant bad. Over the years, or not even over the years, over the months, he basically started just taking the green ones over and over and over again. And they would ask him, why are you picking this one over that one? Like he doesn't know if it's red or green, right? And he said, I don't know. I can't explain it to you. It just feels right. And so this relates to what we're talking about, because you should absolutely create a weekly YouTube video. The creative process is going to be your own. Like, you're going to figure out exactly what it is that you want to talk about. But if you force yourself, if you create a habit wherein, come hell or high water, you are creating a YouTube video every week, you'll end up with this amazing web asset that over time will not only get you to rank better in Google, but get a ton of views via YouTube. And then who knows where this whole thing will go, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. But it certainly seems like video ain't going nowhere.
I agree, and I love that plan of making that weekly YouTube video. So that way you figure out, you get all the bugs worked out, and then you do it again and again. And through those repetitions, you have that habit, so that it becomes to the point where if a week goes by where you're not making a YouTube video, it feels weird because the new norm has become making those YouTube videos. And so I know that you said that the details of that are up to us as far as like the creative process, figuring it out. But just out of curiosity, as far as the recent YouTube videos that you have made, can you kind of tell us like what are some like recent videos you've made that you really enjoyed making, to kind of give us some idea of what sort of content to be pumping out here?
Sure. So yeah, to reiterate just the main message, which is you be you, do your thing. But here's my personal take on what we've been doing. I am not afraid to take out my phone. I was at a charitable event. Kim McQuarrie is a 4-time Emmy Award-winning documentary filmmaker. And I had no idea that was the case when I went to Cunningham Elementary School for his nonprofit Green Our Planet, which is a phenomenally interesting nonprofit because they plant gardens. They raise money online to plant gardens in low-income schools, and the kids can then plant the seeds. So there's science curriculum there. There's a lot of math involved in that entire process, and they end up harvesting the fruits and vegetables and selling them at a farmer's market. And so you have a business and economics curriculum attached to it. And as a former teacher, I find this fascinating. So I went to volunteer at one particular event. I did not have my nice camera. It was drizzling outside. It doesn't matter. I point the camera towards my face. I start talking. That video has, I want to say, about 5,000 views now. So that's one good example, is just point your camera phone at your face and start talking. Feel free to, after the fact, go into a video production software similar to iMovie. If you're on Mac, that's an easy one. And there's something called Picture in Picture that will apply to any video software that you use, that allows you to create that news anchor square next to your head, and you can add whatever you want. So you can take some shaky, grainy footage and still have a little bit of a higher production quality if you understand what that means. And then 2 different kinds of videos. The standard one I make is just me talking head, because I don't have 9 hours to make a video. I have about 2.5. And so setting up the camera, just me talking about XYZ thing, and then I'll point to the air, obviously, and then I'll add the graphic in after, and then knock that out. My new book, Everybody's Doing It. I've been reading that on YouTube. That's a really easy video to make because I'm just reading from the book. And then last but not least, at least on a Mac, there is a way to record your screen using QuickTime. But I'm sure there's an option on PC as well. And you can give folks tutorials on go here, do this, do that. If there's anything online where you want to show them how to do that.
Great. So all kinds of ideas there, from whatever you're out doing, to if you're just have on your phone and you have some tips or things to report on, you say it, and then basically dub in or edit in the kind of corner graphic that you want to do later on, things that you're doing during the day anyway, like reading your own book or promoting some of your own stuff, and then screen capture recording. So lots of great, interesting ideas there. And to kind of answer your question there, as far as screen capture on the PC, Camtasia is great for that. And then also a free option is a website called screencast-o-matic.com. Not my website, but a place where you can make, I think, like a free 15-minute screen capture tutorial on a PC with no software. You just go in there and you click and it starts recording. So easy way for people to pump out that content. So there's not really as much of an excuse anymore as there used to be. But something that I want to start to kind of unpack a little bit here as we're winding down is, you mentioned in there that you're all about, make the video and get it out there as soon as possible, and don't spend a lot of time getting bogged down on the details. Is this something that you see happen? And is there a solution? Because I'm sure that, I see people spend tons of time making their videos perfect in the same way they might have been trying to make their blog posts perfect. So do you have any helpful advice as far as overcoming that perfection and getting that content out there quickly?
Yeah, it's interesting because the first time you do something, if you really, really want it to be perfect, the irony is that a year from now, your worst video will probably be better than the best video you could create now. It's scary to think that you're going to put yourself out there and it's not going to be a good look. There is absolutely such a thing as being vulnerable and having people, make fun of you, or you end up with this product that you're not proud of. It's tough. I mean, it's a really deep reflection on how we feel about ourselves, and so I run the risk of getting emotional or oversharing. Getting into the space here. It definitely doesn't seem like internet marketing to be talking about vulnerability, but there is definitely a lot to think about in regards to getting the ball rolling, and so I would really just reflect on the fact that this is what you do, right? This is your profession. If not you, then who? And don't be afraid to be goofy. Don't be afraid to be silly. I did a video in Spanish where I had a beard for a while, and then I cut all of it except for a mustache and a little soul patch. And I did this dumb video in Spanish, but I had a blast doing it. And a couple of people said some things, they're like making fun of me, and I'm okay with that. Like putting yourself out there is definitely going to make you sweat. And I don't mean figuratively, I mean literally sweat. But at least you will have pushed forward in an arena where a lot of people simply can't manage through it. So be bold, be courageous, be yourself, be funny, be serious, do your thing. You can absolutely do this and create a habit out of it.
That's great encouragement. I love you saying to just get the ball rolling. And what that makes me think of is, if the goal out there is for someone to say they make that YouTube video and say it's like the fire starter sticks, and you make the YouTube video, someone's looking for camping advice, they see the fire starter sticks, they go in there and they buy it from you. And then if you imagine like an alternate reality where if the only difference between our reality and that one is that one video hadn't been made, then they might have gone on and not found the solution to their problem, or they might have gone on and found another ad and bought the same exact damn fire starter but from some other manufacturer. And so great advice there as far as like this is what you do, this is your passion, and if not you, then who. And so I want to make sure that we have time to tell people about this new book that you came out with that you mentioned, this Everybody's Doing It. So can you tell us what this is all about and what makes it unique?
Yeah, so I have a master's degree in education. I taught for 5 years before transitioning into this world of internet marketing. And I find it so interesting that there's a ton of crossover between almost everything that I look at. So here's the takeaway. So I mentioned that advertere, which is the Latin root of the word advertising, means to turn toward. And so we all had a very similar experience when we landed on this planet. First thing we did was cry. And that single act got all of our needs met. In fact, it was our first advertisement. And as we grow older, 2, 3, 4 years old, that simple advertisement turns into more subtle things like holding out your hands if you want to be held, or going by the refrigerator if you're hungry. You may start to develop language, like it, please, those sorts of things. And we continue advertising throughout our entire lives. In fact, it's impossible not to. And so this notion that you aren't an amazing advertiser isn't true. Advertising is an innate human quality. So when we look at things that seem complicated and challenging and difficult, like Facebook demographic targeting, advanced AdWords, Google Analytics, developing a WordPress website, what you'll find as you approach these spaces is that you already get this stuff. It's intuitive. You know what you want to share with people. You know what looks and sounds good. The rest is just figuring out the tools. And so in Everybody's Doing It, we show you that, but within the context of the fact that you are already an excellent advertiser.
Well, great. And that's reassuring that like we already have the majority of it figured out, because like, we know what we want to say. We know what kind of ads make us sit up and pay attention. And the rest is just figuring out the details, figuring out the tools, figuring out the do's and don'ts, what kind of rules they have in place. And so in this Everybody's Doing It book, what advertising methods does it cover, or is it everything?
Yeah, we cover SEO, Facebook, YouTube, AdWords, Pinterest link building. Basically, I've had the small business owner conversation north of 2,000 times. So I definitely know what that original conversation looks like. And this book is it's 137 pages of me saying what I wish I could say in those meetings because we don't have enough time. And so this gets you there. If you're interested in my conceptual best practice in 2017 of small business advertising, this is it.
I love it. So I think that everyone should grab this book. And how do they go about doing that?
Go to Amazon.com and type in Everybody's Doing It. The full title is Everybody's Doing It, Advertising Redefined by SEO expert Kellen Kautzman. But typing in Everybody's Doing It should get you there.
Great. And are there any other websites or resources you want to mention today, or should people just be going on Amazon and getting that book?
That's fine. I mean, I own Send It Rising Internet Marketing. That's SENDITRISING.com. We do work nationally, so if any folks are interested in chatting, obviously we do free consultations. I'm happy to help.
All right, great. So basically, you guys have one of two choices in front of you, and you should probably do both things. The first path to take is to go to Amazon, search for Everybody's Doing It, and get the book so you can figure out what your business needs to catch up and to stay ahead in this day and age. You always hear about people are doing crazy stuff with YouTube or Facebook or Pinterest or whatever. And if you haven't heard those stories, and maybe listen to today's episode a little bit closely, because we told you all kinds of cool case studies and stories. So if you want to get caught up, if you want to use the power of the internet to boost your business, to do all of these things that maybe you've seen some other companies doing, but you wanted to know how to get caught up, well then, instead of having to go through that big long conversation that you said you've had about 2,000 times, Mr. Kellen, then people should just go and grab your book to get caught up, to get what they need to know. So that's action item number one to do. And then step number two is to then go to senditrising.com and see what he's got on that page. And if you want to take things to the next level, if you say, I read the book, it was great, gave me all kinds of ideas, now I need help with the implementation or the strategy or something, then reach out to Kellen and his team and make it happen. Because I guess the common recurring thread I keep hearing today is, first of all, don't stress out if you haven't done it yet, but imagine if you'd set that up 3 years ago. Imagine if you put out that YouTube video 3 years ago, made the website 3 years ago, whatever it is, how much of that would have added up to today. But if you missed the boat on that, it's okay. It's still not too late. Do it now so that in the coming future, now you'll have those weekly YouTube videos that you put out. Now you'll have the infographic that you share on Pinterest, as well as all kinds of whatever crazy artificial intelligence stuff is happening, where Google is transcribing the words you say on YouTube. That way you get on there and whatever it is. So whatever new innovations and trends that happen on the internet, the only way you're going to be able to benefit from it is if you yourself are using that platform. So go ahead and do it. So go to Amazon, search for Everybody's Doing It. You see the result by Kellen Kautzman. You know you're in the right place. Go and grab that book, read it. You'll be glad you did. Everybody's Doing It by Kellen Kautzman on Amazon. And thanks for stopping by, Mr. Kellen, and sharing all kinds of interesting stories and interesting strategies and things that we should be doing with this internet stuff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're great at this, Robert. Excellent job.
Want to listen to more fantastic marketers of the day? Subscribe to us at marketeroftheday.com/iTunes and browse past episodes at marketeroftheday.com.